My name is Pansy S. McCurdy. I'm 32, and I didn't lose $180,000 on that deal. Thank God for that, because I was this close to wiring the funds when the text came, and that changed everything. My mom texted, "We've all agreed. It's best if you stay out of the family from now on." I replied, "Understood." Then I pulled out of the real estate deal they'd been banking on, and for the first time in my life, I didn't wait to be punished for it. I punished the pattern. That money was meant to be my contribution. No, scratch that. My entire involvement in helping my parents buy a house for my brother Ryan and his new wife Megan. That's how they pitched it. An investment in family. Something solid. Something they'd pay me back for. "It'll be in all our names," they said. "You're securing the loan, but it's for your brother's future." They made it sound like I'd be honored, like I should be grateful they trusted me with the role of carrying them across the finish line. I wasn't born yesterday. I knew what was happening. They didn't have the credit. They didn't have the income. But I did. I built it quietly, steadily, for years, while they blew money on upgrades for Ryan's wedding. A kitchen remodel that never finished. A half-finished lake investment property they couldn't afford and made me co-sign on temporarily. Temporary became years. Promises became silence. My name stayed on documents like an anchor, while they spoke about family like it was something you could cash out. My boyfriend Owen told me not to do it. Not in a dramatic way, not with ultimatums. He just watched the paperwork spread across my dining table one night, the mortgage documents, the cheerful email threads, the numbers that only looked clean if you didn't know who was actually holding them up. He said, "You're not their plan. You're their solution." And he was right. But I still told myself I'd do it differently this time. I'd get everything in writing. I'd protect myself. I'd be smart. So I did. I made sure my name was on the agreement. I reviewed the mortgage documents myself. I had it all lined up. I wasn't going to be the fool again. I wasn't going to be the woman who got praised in private for being dependable, then treated like an inconvenience the moment I asked for respect. I had boundaries ready. I had conditions. I had the kind of cautious optimism you only develop when you've been burned repeatedly, but you still want to believe your own family won't strike the match again. Then, 2 days before the transfer, my mom sent that text. "We've all agreed. It's best if you stay out of the family from now on." That was the entire message. No punctuation besides the period. It didn't even feel real at first. I had to reread it 3 times to be sure I wasn't imagining it. My thumb hovered over the screen, waiting for the follow-up that never came. An explanation, a correction, even a petty emoji. Nothing. I didn't ask who "we" was. I already knew. My dad, Ryan, Megan, maybe even my aunt who loved to preach loyalty when it didn't cost her anything. The whole committee that formed any time they needed someone to blame, or someone to fund them, or someone to be quietly removed the moment she became inconvenient. I replied with one word, "Understood." It was the cleanest response I've ever given them, and it was the first time I didn't feel guilty for being cold. Because they weren't emotional in that text. They weren't confused. They weren't trying to repair. They were issuing a decision like I was a problem to manage. So I opened my laptop and drafted an email to the title company and realtor. I formally withdrew from the transaction. No explanations, just a clear, final decision. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I didn't cry. I just felt precise. Like everything inside me finally clicked into place. They cut me out before the money was in their hands. They fired me from the role I never applied for, so I clocked out. The silence that followed lasted almost a day. Then the calls started. My mom called me 5 times before 8 a.m. the next morning. Then it was my dad. Then Ryan. He tried calling from 3 different numbers, like I wouldn't recognize the desperation through a new area code. I didn't answer a single one. I was done with explanations. I didn't need to justify walking away from people who had shown me exactly how little they valued me. Owen watched my phone light up again and again while I made coffee, and he didn't say "I told you so." He just said, "They're scared." And he was right again. Not because they missed me, because they realized the bank wasn't going to overlook the fact that 60% of the financing and the only person with a stable income had just disappeared. By noon, I got a message from their realtor. The guy had been incredibly smug during the process, barely acknowledging me, even though my name and money were holding the deal together. His text said, "Did you mean to tank the closing?" The audacity of it made me smile, because it revealed the truth. They never saw me as a person in the deal. Only a function. I replied, yes. He didn't respond. That evening, Ryan showed up at my place. He was outside yelling, banging on my door like a maniac, like volume could rewrite contracts. I didn't answer. I watched the shadow under the peephole shift with every stomp and slam, and I felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not fear, not sadness, distance. He left a voicemail that said, and I quote, "You think you're smart? This is going to get legal fast." I saved it. At 9:27 p.m., my mom texted me again. It was long. Something about how she was emotional, how she didn't mean what she said. We all say things we don't mean sometimes. Then came the guilt bomb. A photo of me and Ryan as kids covered in ice cream with the caption, "Family Forever." I didn't respond. What they didn't understand is that I'd been slowly stepping back from them for years. I just never had the guts to cut the rope. I always gave in, always bailed them out, always made excuses for their entitlement. They never treated me like a real person with a life and boundaries. Just a resource, a tool to use when convenient. But this time they pushed too far. They cut me out before the money was in their hands. So I walked calmly, quietly. And the fallout hadn't even begun. The morning after I pulled out of the deal, the group chat lit up like it hadn't in months. It was almost funny how fast I went from being disposable to being essential again. Silence had been my punishment for years. Now it was their emergency. Ryan kicked it off. "You're really going to blow up everything over one dumb text?" A few minutes later, my dad followed. "This is childish. You're hurting your own family for what? Pride." Then my mom chimed in, skipping apology entirely and going straight for revisionist history. "I didn't mean what I said, Pansy. You're taking it too literally. It was a rough day. Can we please talk like adults?" Not a single acknowledgement of the fact that they had uninvited me from my own bloodline 48 hours earlier. No ownership, no accountability, just panic dressed up as concern. They were scrambling now because the bank wasn't going to ignore the sudden disappearance of the person carrying most of the financing. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about the math. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my lawyer and told him I needed documentation drawn up immediately to sever myself completely from any ties to the property. He was surprised, but not shocked. He'd met my family before during the lake property fiasco when they'd dragged me into a half-baked investment with promises it would be flipped in 6 months. 6 months turned into 3 years, and my name stayed glued to the paperwork while theirs floated free. He knew how they operated, entitled, manipulative, always one step away from turning on each other when things didn't go their way. He told me he'd have the paperwork ready within 48 hours. At noon, I got another message, this time from the realtor, Mark. Slick guy, always smiling, always talking like a sports announcer, like every deal was a game, and he was just here to keep score. He'd barely spoken to me directly during the entire process, just enough to make sure I signed what I was supposed to sign. Now suddenly, I was the most important person in his phone. "I just got off the phone with your family," he wrote. "Everyone's a mess over here. Did you really mean to tank this closing?" I replied with the same word I'd already used once that day. Yes. 15 minutes later, he sent another message. "You've cost them a fortune in penalties. You're not just backing out of a deal, you're sabotaging it." I didn't reply. So he sent another, like he couldn't stop himself. "You better not contact me again. I won't work with you on any future properties. This was insane." I screenshotted it and archived it. I didn't need him, and I wasn't planning on buying anything tied to my family ever again. His threat meant nothing to me. It was just noise from someone who had mistaken my silence for weakness. That night, Ryan called me 4 times. Then he texted, "I'm serious. This isn't over. I'm talking to a lawyer. You're going to pay for what you did." There it was, the shift from guilt to intimidation. I forwarded the message to my attorney. He called me after reading the entire thread and said something that settled deep in my chest. "Good thing they showed you who they really were before the wire hit. You dodged a bomb." The next day, the tone shifted again. Panic gave way to pressure. My dad emailed me a PDF titled Proposed Family Resolution. I opened it out of curiosity and laughed out loud. It said that if I didn't want to co-own the house, I could still help by wiring $50,000 as a family gift to support Ryan and Megan's transition. In return, they would forgive any misunderstandings and agree not to pursue further discussion of the issue. "Forgive me." I didn't reply. My mom followed it up with a voicemail. She was crying, or pretending to. She said Ryan was spiraling. Megan was devastated. The whole family was breaking apart. She said she couldn't sleep, that she didn't recognize me anymore. I listened to the entire message once, saved it, and sent it to my lawyer too. Then, predictably, Ryan escalated. He sent a long text claiming I'd made a verbal agreement and that his attorney said it could qualify as a breach. He said he was exploring damages. I knew exactly what he was doing. They couldn't get the house without me, so now they were trying to shake me down instead. My lawyer called me right after reading it. "There's nothing here," he said. "You didn't sign the final contract. There's no liability. It's empty noise. But save everything." It was pathetic. They went from banishing me from the family to begging, to threatening, to trying to gaslight me into giving them free money. I used to feel sorry for Ryan. I told myself he was just spoiled, just coddled, just never forced to grow up. Now all I felt was disgust. And the funniest part was, they still thought I was going to fold. They didn't realize the game had changed. I wasn't negotiating. I wasn't reacting. I wasn't playing by their script anymore. But they weren't done yet, and neither was I. 3 days after everything fell apart, the original closing date came and went. I almost forgot about it until my phone buzzed, with a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. It wasn't Mark this time. It was his assistant, Brooke. Her voice was tight, polite, and shaking just enough to tell me she didn't enjoy being the messenger. "Hi, Pansy. I'm just calling to confirm that we've officially removed you from all documents. We'll be issuing notice to the sellers regarding the failed close. Mark would also like to inform you that due to the unusual nature of this experience, he won't be able to work with you or any of your affiliates moving forward. Thank you." A few hours later, Mark couldn't help himself. He sent a final message, dramatic and self-important. "You blew up your own family's life over nothing. Don't ever call me again." I replied, "Don't for me. Don't worry, I don't need you." I wasn't bluffing. A friend had already connected me with a new agent, someone who specialized in solo buyers. No family ties, no emotional baggage, no assumptions that I'd bend if pressured hard enough. I had my eye on a smaller property in Boulder. Clean lines, clean contract, mine. The idea of it felt like oxygen. Meanwhile, the chaos on their end was only beginning. Ryan's dream house was gone. The seller pulled out entirely, apparently after receiving a better offer once the deal collapsed. The penalties were real too. My parents lost their earnest money, close to $20,000. Ryan blamed me for that, of course. He texted, "This is blood money. You'll regret it." I didn't reply. Threats don't land when they're empty. Then things got strange. My mom's Facebook went dark. Normally she posted like clockwork. Photos of Ryan and Megan. Inspirational quotes about loyalty. Subtle digs that only I ever seemed to notice. Suddenly, nothing. No updates. No passive-aggressive wisdom. Just silence. A day later, I got an email from one of her friends, an old high school teacher of mine. The subject line was gentle. "Just checking in." She wrote that my mom had told the church prayer group I'd been hospitalized, that I'd had some kind of breakdown after sabotaging Ryan's wedding gift, that I was in a rehab facility. I stared at the screen, then laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so familiar. Since they couldn't get my money, they were going to destroy my credibility. If they couldn't control my actions, they'd control the story. The next day, Megan posted a picture of the house that never closed. She tagged it, "Our dream that was stolen." No mention of me, but the comments were full of vague shade. People can be so selfish. Family doesn't mean what it used to. Ryan followed it up with a photo of moving boxes piled in a garage. Starting from scratch, thanks to someone we trusted. Public villain, private pressure, legal threats. It was all the same pattern, just louder. But I wasn't rattled, because there were things they didn't know. A week before any of this blew up, Ryan had asked me to help him co-sign a small personal loan. Different deal, different bank. I hadn't signed anything, but I'd reviewed all the documents. I knew exactly what he'd told the bank to get pre-approved, and I knew he'd lied, badly, about his income, about Megan's employment. There were emails, texts, attachments. I saved everything. I hadn't planned on using it, not until now. They wanted war. They were about to get one. But not the loud, chaotic kind they expected. I wasn't interested in revenge. I wanted consequences, real ones. the kind that don't fade when the shouting stops. I drafted a short email to the bank's fraud and compliance division. No emotion, no threats, just documents and a brief explanation. This application includes false financial information submitted by the primary applicant. I declined to co-sign, but felt obligated to report the data provided. I didn't expect a quick response. I got one 2 days later. They thanked me and said they'd be launching a review. Then silence, until Ryan texted me in a rage. "You reported me? My account is frozen. You better fix this." I didn't respond. I wasn't going to explain myself to someone who thought lying on a federal application was just bending the truth. That same day, I started digging into the lake property, the one they begged me to co-sign on 3 years ago, with promises it would be flipped in 6 months. I never saw a dime from it, never even got a thank you. My name stayed on the mortgage like an anchor. Turns out they hadn't paid property taxes in over 2 years, just under $5,000. The county hadn't moved on it yet, but the window was closing. I called a tax attorney and explained the situation. He walked me through the process of initiating a forced sale since my name was still on the title. Within 48 hours, we filed formal notice of intent. That's when everything exploded. My mom called 12 times in one day, left a voicemail accusing me of disgracing the family. My dad emailed a threat about dragging me into court for defamation. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Then I filed a claim for the unpaid utility bills tied to that property. $3,870. Still in my name, I had every invoice. I filed it in small claims court and had it delivered to Ryan's workplace. Publicly. Loudly. And then I did one more thing. The move that changed the tone entirely. I sent an anonymous tip to Megan's employer. Just a short message. Your employee may be involved in a mortgage fraud application using your company's name as false income verification. Suggest verifying with your legal department. I didn't need to watch the fallout. I just needed to know the dominoes were falling. That same week, Ryan posted something cryptic online. A black screen with white text, the kind people use when they want attention but not accountability. "Some people spend their lives pretending they're better than you," it read. "But the truth always comes out. Watch your back." I took a screenshot and smiled. Not because it scared me, but because it confirmed what I already knew. They weren't processing, they were unraveling. What they still didn't understand was that I didn't want revenge for the sake of pain. I wanted consequences, real ones, the kind that stick, the kind you can't cry your way out of or reframe as a misunderstanding later. They told me to stay out of the family. They made their decision. I was just honoring it. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks since I sent that email to the bank. 3 weeks since Ryan's account froze. 3 weeks since the tax attorney filed the notice of intent on the lake property. 3 weeks of total silence from me and escalating chaos from them. They weren't just panicking now, they were flailing. I heard through a mutual acquaintance, one of the few people I still trusted, that Megan had been let go from her job quietly. No public announcement, no dramatic exit post, just a meeting with HR and a box for her desk. Clarification on employment documentation, apparently. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. The truth had a way of surfacing on its own. The lake property was next. The county filed an official delinquency notice and mailed copies to everyone on the title, including me. The letter was plain and clinical. Pay the balance within 30 days or the sale would proceed. I forwarded the notice to my parents via certified mail. No letter, no explanation, just the government seal and the unpaid bill. My dad tried to call after that. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail asking if I was really willing to let everything burn down out of spite, as if I hadn't spent years trying to keep it from catching fire while they played with matches. The house deal was dead. That part was obvious. What they couldn't accept was that I had moved on. 2 days later, I closed on my own place in Boulder. A one-bedroom condo with mountain views and windows that let the light in like it had nowhere else to be. Clean contract. No shared names. No whispered favors. Just mine. For the first time in my life, every square foot of the space belonged to me. I started hiking again, joined a local gym, met people who didn't know me as the dependable daughter or the one who always paid for dinner, people who didn't expect me to fix their messes or smooth their mistakes. It felt like freedom. Not loud or dramatic, solid, real. Just when I thought the dust might finally be settling, they tried one last move. A letter arrived from a lawyer, their lawyer. Inside was a claim that I had intentionally sabotaged the real estate deal to inflict emotional and financial distress on Ryan and Megan, that my actions were calculated and malicious, that they were considering filing for damages. The letter was vague, padded with legal fluff, and obviously meant to intimidate. I called my attorney, who had already received a copy. He sounded amused. "They've got nothing," he said. "No contract, no agreement, no cause. This is a bluff. If they file anything, we'll bury them with counterclaims." He advised me to do nothing, no response, no escalation. Just let them flail. So I did. Instead of replying, I posted a photo from my new balcony. Just trees, sky, and quiet. No caption. I made sure it was public. A few hours later, I got a text from an unknown number. "You think this is over? You'll regret embarrassing us." I blocked the number. I wasn't going back into the fire they started. I had already won. Stop! Part 5. When silence becomes the ending. About 2 months after I posted that photo, everything stopped. No more texts, no more emails, no more secondhand threats delivered through people who just wanted to help. Whatever storm they'd been trying to whip up collapsed under its own weight. It wasn't just that they lost, it was that they finally understood I wasn't bluffing. Their lawyer never filed anything. My attorney sent me an update saying the matter had resolved itself, which was a professional way of saying they tucked their tails and backed off. No apology, no admission, just a silent retreat. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I moved on. The lake property sold at auction 3 weeks later. The buyer paid a fraction of what it was worth. My parents didn't get anything. They were still underwater on the taxes. Ryan called the county office 3 times trying to contest it. I know because someone shared a thread in a local homeowners Facebook group about a young couple's dream getaway being foreclosed on. Dreams are fragile when they're built on lies. Meanwhile, I finished furnishing my condo. It took longer than I expected, mostly because I'd never had a place of my own that felt like home. Every small purchase felt like stitching up a part of me that had been frayed for years. Plates, a couch, art for the walls, even a ridiculous little plant for the bathroom. All of it felt earned. The house I helped them lose? It got relisted and sold within days. The seller ended up getting more from another buyer. I checked the public record. Ryan and Megan weren't even backup offers. Their credit was wrecked. Megan never found another job. They moved back in with my parents. All 4 of them under the same roof. The picture-perfect life they'd tried to manufacture online disappeared. They deleted me everywhere. Social media, group chats, phone contacts. I was erased. Not because they were healed, but because they couldn't stand to watch me be okay. I got one last letter from my mom. Handwritten, 2 pages, no return address. It arrived like a ghost from a past I thought I'd already buried. She didn't apologize. Not really. She said she missed having all her children together, that she never imagined things would go this far, that she hoped time would soften things. Near the end, there was a line that said, "You have no idea how hard this has been for us." That was all I needed to hear. Even now, it was still about them. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I didn't rip it up. I didn't frame it. I just placed it somewhere it couldn't reach me. Since then, I've changed jobs. I've made friends who don't know my history. I've started seeing someone slowly, cautiously, honestly. I didn't rebuild out of revenge or spite. I rebuilt out of peace, something I never had in that family. People say you can't choose your family. I disagree. You can choose not to answer the phone. You can choose not to rescue people who treat your kindness like currency. You can choose not to be the fallback plan for people who never plan to respect you. And you can choose to walk away. The text that started it all still sits in my archive. We've all agreed it's best if you stay out of the family from now on. They were right. It was the best thing I ever did.